Hi and welcome to Inside Zede Sewing Studio. I'm Mallory Donahue.
I'm Zede Donahue.
And this is the sewing show that's filmed in front of a live audience. And today we're going to be welcoming to the show two guests. First, Linda Turner.
Linda Turner. She's going to show us how to embroider on onesies. She's a new grandma and she's got this down, let me tell you. She's at perfection on this.
The 5-month-old, who is her granddaughter, has more onesies than I think all three of your children
have
combined.
Then I do shoes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot of onesies.
That's a lot of onesies.
And second, we'll be bringing you an interview with nationally renowned fiber artist Karen Linduska.
We're here with Linda Turner, and she is our onesie expert because she's a new grandmother, and Miss Avery has a onesie for every occasion. And one of the problems we get to when we do onesies is, first, the biggest problem is how small it is, and that it is a knit, and it's a fairly fine knit. And Linda is going to tell us how she stabilizes this and how she has taught herself to get around maybe the downfalls or the pitfalls when you go to doing one of these little guys, and the fact that it's also rather delicate, right, Linda?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let us know what you're going to do.
Okay, first thing I want to do with our onesie is I want to use some no-show mesh behind the onesie to stabilize the knit.
Okay, so you're giving the knit some substance and to make it truly stable so it won't move.
Exactly. And so I want to use some temporary spray adhesive, and I want to spray that on this piece of no-show mesh, which is a cutaway.
Because you want it to stick to the back and stay there, so you don't have to worry about it going anyplace.
Right.
Okay. And you want to kind of spray this off to the side so we don't like asphyxiate ourselves. And what we do in the shop is generally we have a box we call our spray box. We lay the no-show mesh down in it, and then we put the temporary adhesive spray on it. Linda's going to turn this onesie inside out because that's what you have to do on a home embroidery machine because you do not have free arm access to be able to do this. The other thing is some people don't want to use the spray, so there are mesh stabilizers that will stick or can be pressed on with an iron, so you also have that option. This has been Linda's favorite way with the adhesive spray, and I don't think any embroidery sewing room is complete without temporary adhesive spray. It can be used for so many things. So you got that really flat.
Right.
And then you're getting good at this, so you know where that embroidery is going to go.
Right. I pretty much already know the design, obviously, that I'm going to put on it. If you look closely, I have already marked my center with a temporary marker.
I can see it, right. I can see it almost all the way. She did it all the way down, actually.
So I can see that because then I'm going to use a tearaway on my hoop.
In your hoop, you hoop tearaway, okay.
So I actually use cutaway and tearaway to do the onesie.
Because we're not hooping the onesie itself.
It's too little to hoop.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to hoop this.
Mm-hmm.
And when can I step around front? Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you look at my hoop, you'll also see that I've marked it so I know where my center lines are.
I see you're folding it to find the center of the front and you're inside out.
Right. And even though I have my marks on there, I want to make sure.
You're making sure.
Right.
You're in the middle of the hoop.
And for me, I've always put the neck at the very top.
Okay. Very clever. Now we have sprayed this, so this is sticky now.
Right.
So the tearaway that's been hooped has been sprayed. So she matches the center line on the onesie to the center line on the tearaway that's in the hoop. So now we're still inside out.
Right.
Okay.
We're also going to put a topper on it,
okay,
which is on the inside that you really are not able to see. That's why a onesie is so difficult to do, because I'm really going to be working inside here.
Inside the tube, basically.
Inside the tube.
The tube of the onesie.
Right. Several ways to put the topper on, which, can you tell them what a topper is for?
Well, a topper is usually it's usually kind of clear, looks like a piece of cellophane maybe, and it is to hold down any of the fibers in your project. A lot of times we use it with something that has a nap or a pile, like a terry or a velvet. And sometimes we use it with a knit so that the stitches don't get lost in the fibers of the project. Now, Linda's actually taking a piece of cellophane tape and taping her topper on the...
When we get finished, it melts away with water.
Right. So we tear away the bulk of it, and anything that's left we can get to dissolve with water.
Right.
Okay.
And I put the little tape at the top merely to hold it till I get it in the machine and get it set up where the design is going to be.
Right. Now the reason I like tape, Linda, is because if I pinned and I forgot about the pin, I might hit the pin with my sewing machine's needle, or I might stab myself, and whatever. So the tape, even if it accidentally sews to the tape, I can still get that tape off.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is put this on the machine. This is a Baby Lock Elegante, and this is what Linda sews on at home, so we decided we would use it here.
Okay. I have to hold this the entire time that I'm stitching, because you're stitching in a circle down in the hole.
Okay, so we've taken this off the machine. Linda held it the whole time. It's stitched out. Linda, we have all the stabilizer left. You gonna put that on your baby?
No, we're not going to put that on the baby.
Now when I pull this off, I don't know about you, but I make sure I also hold the stitching.
Exactly.
Is that what you do? Okay.
Exactly. You don't want to tear the stitches,
or
so while
pull
it's
them or make them anyway unstable, because they're in there so nice.
Right,
and
this is tear away.
Right.
It's not pull away.
Right.
So
give yourself a little tear, and then she's holding on to the stitch motif as she pulls up next to it in order to keep the integrity of that stitching in place. Now, when we first started with home embroidery machines, we only had two stabilizers. We had cutaway, tear away. Well, I guess we had the topping that we put on wash away or dissolvable topping. That was it. And now we have all of these. And it's wonderful because we didn't have these nice soft little things, to put up against the baby's skin.
And even though I got the tear away out of the edge, I want to take it off.
You've got it now in the middle too.
Right.
Sometimes, like inside this A, we have a little tearaway, and I might take the end of my scissors. I also like sometimes the flat side of my little screwdriver even that I use with my sewing machine to get under this, put it up against my thumb and pull it out, because it's really hard whether you have fingernails or not. And Linda and I both have some fingernails, but it's still kind of hard. Sometimes you'll need a little tool to help you get that out.
Then before I take the cutaway away, I want to turn it the other way.
Okay. So we're going to trim any jump stitches that are here. And sometimes this is a little tedious, but it has to be done. Okay.
I tore away this topper that was left, and we think we have all the little jump stitches out. And then when I take
now you have a lot of stabilizer back here.
And we don't want to leave that on except the part that's behind.
All right, now we don't want to leave all this on here. For one thing, it might show through to the front, and it might irritate the baby's skin. So Linda's pulling it up to the motif.
And I think that's important to do. And again, this is cutaway. And I generally use either my duckbill scissors or a pair of scissors. But when I cut this, I put my hand back there between the knit and what I'm cutting, so I don't cut the shirt or the onesie.
So you don't cut all the work you've just done. Right.
So you've got to be careful as you're doing this. And these are duckbill scissors that I purchased in a kit from here, from Floriani, and I love these. They're so neat to use.
That is a really nice kit too. Every tool that's in it you use.
I do.
Good job. So now Linda has removed all of the cutaway, well, most of the cutaway up to the motif. So there's plenty under it to keep it stabilized because we don't want this stretching where she has stitched. And that's going to keep all of the stitches in place. But we're not finished because you're worried about this up against the baby's skin, right?
Right.
Okay.
Against the baby's skin. So you want to put a protective covering over that.
This is a sulky product.
Yes.
There are others.
It has an adhesive on the back of it. So I've cut a piece of it and I'm just going to put it over the design and then I'm going to press it in place.
And I think most of the time it's like a silk setting. And this is just to keep it away from the baby's tender skin. I've actually used this on running shirts of my husband's. He's had a shirt that had a motif and said, "This rubs me when I run. Is there anything you can do?" I take a little piece of this, I press it on, and he thinks I'm like some miracle worker. Oh, let me feel. Oh, it really makes a big difference, Linda. It really does. And there we go. Now Avery hasn't seen this one yet, and neither has her mother, so she might watch the show and see it, right?
She knew we were doing the show and she told me to select something I thought would be pretty on her.
These are behind us. Are many of the things that Linda has done.
Can I
for
tell you?
Avery? Do you want? Oh, yeah. Tell us about some of them.
Can I tell you about 2 or 3 other ones, or
Okay.
at least 2 that we've made? This one is a cute little onesie, I think, that was actually from a shirt that is recycled. And Mallory did these adorable,
So she made the ruffles.
the little ruffles to put on the back of it. And then she said, "Linda, you can put a little applique on the front of it." So I did her little A and put her name on the front of it. This one I think turned out real cute. Her mother has heard about this one but has not seen this one yet. And then this is another one that a friend asked that I do. She has made some boots and also a cute little hair bow for a friend of hers, and she wanted me to do something that said "cute as a button" with bows and boots.
Linda, I want to thank you so much for being here. It's been great. I think everybody will get a lot out of this. Does anybody have any questions? Does she wear these by themselves, or does she put them? Does she wear them just like this, or what?
It's a good question. Most of the time, her mother has leg warmers that
How
she
cute.
puts with those.
How cute.
The Christmas one here, her mother had a little hat and also the little leg warmers that made her look almost like a little Santa girl. She also has tutus that she has put with several of them to let her wear them also.
Our next question is actually from Twitter, Linda, and what they ask is, what kind of fabrics do you use when you applique? Does it matter what kind of fabric it is? Because I saw you had some metallic fabrics on one too.
Right. It just really doesn't matter so much. The key to any of them that I use on the applique is that I starch them
So you make
before
them
I
nice
use
and
them.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Well, that was good. So now we know a good idea to starch them. I wouldn't have thought of that unless we'd had that Twitter question. Thank you, Linda. Now we're going to go to Mallory on the 5th floor where she's interviewing Karen Linduska.
We're here with Karen Linduska, nationally renowned fiber artist. Thanks for coming on the show, Karen.
Well, thanks for asking me.
And we've had a long day of classes here at Zede's, and Karen's agreed to do an interview with us. So starting off, Karen, tell us a little bit about this technique you've developed with decorative stitches on the sewing machine.
Okay, well, when I first started doing this, it was in the late 70s when I was in college. I was on a vintage Sears Kenmore, and I was using the utility stitches for surface design. I didn't know anything about stabilizers, so I was using wax paper
All right.
as my stabilizer. And I was just stitching all over the fabric with the stitches in different layers of thread, and then I would cut it apart and make things out of it. So that was the foundation of what I'm doing today. And then in 1997, I bought my first, what I call big girl sewing machine that had, and I specifically bought it with the decorative stitches because those are what I wanted to use. And so I just started playing with it. I was lucky at the time because I had another job where I actually got a paycheck.
You got a paycheck, yeah, you had a real job.
So I had the time to explore and play with the stitches and not have to worry about making something that I had to market.
Sure.
So I gave myself plenty of time to make mistakes and just keep going. And the marshland quilt is the first thing that I came up with, which is the linear, the lines.
Sure.
And after a while, I started figuring how to do single stitch pattern. So then I started getting into building the flowers more and using the different leaf patterns. And then I started learning about how to alter the stitches. So it was a gradual process. It took me about 12 years to really perfect.
So do you feel like that your process has been affected by some of the technological innovations in the sewing industry, like the single stitch select and the mirror image?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the new machines are really, as far as I'm concerned, they need more stitches. But
You hear that? Baby lock?
yeah, they can never have enough stitches as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, that's what really has made it for me. And I just, they're a lot more user-friendly. You just turn it on, pick a stitch, and go.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your book that is out now, published by AQS, Your Machines, Decorative Stitches. Will you tell us a little bit about that book, but then I really want to talk about your new book, too.
Well, it's got 12 small projects that crop down to about 10.5 by 10.5.
Okay.
So, and they start out very simple, like with the marshland quilt, and then they get more technical each time. They have a lot of built-on components that are done with the single stitch pattern.
Okay.
The beginning of the book has a lot of technical information that is about how to do this and how to do that. So it's really good for that type of format. You could do the 12 small projects in the same color scheme, and you could turn it into a larger quilt.
Sure.
And then the last two quilts, which are 13 and 14, are actually 19 by 19. So you could, do all kinds of things with the combinations of all of them.
So tell us about your new book. What kind of book is it going to be?
It's a companion book to the first book, but it also stands on its own. This particular book, which is called Creative Uses for Decorative Stitches, is it's got a mix and match section.
Okay.
Which has flowers and stems and leaves and grids. You can mix and match all of them.
So you can take those components
Right.
to make up your own project.
Yes. There's actually 10 projects in the book, but when you combine all the combinations, you could make up to 100 projects.
Sure. So how often do you visit venues to teach in? I know we've seen you at Baby Lock Tech in St. Louis once a year, and obviously visited Columbia, Missouri here. How often do you go around the country and teach?
I'm teaching somewhere other than my hometown, which is Carbondale, Illinois, at least once a month.
Okay, so if someone wants to get in contact with you about teaching in their store, what's your website? Is it
KarenLinduska.com.
KarenLinduska.com. Okay.
Or I'm on Facebook at Decorative Stitches. Wait, I can't remember.
Decorative
Thread painting with decorative stitches with Karen Linduska.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
You can
It's
go
been
to
a long day.
You can go to our Facebook page, and we have Karen as one of our.
Or just
favorite
type in
pages.
Karen Linduska in
Yeah.
Facebook, and
It's
it'll
not
come
a
up.
very common name. Tell us. I know that you didn't choose this one as your favorite, but it's one of my favorite that I have seen of yours, and maybe because of the color. This quilt behind us here.
Well, this is one of the only quilts I've ever made where I did an actual traditional quilt design, which is the orange peel.
Okay.
And this quilt came about because there was a challenge at the Quilt Museum. You know, they have their yearly challenge for whatever quilt block of the year, and that one happened to be orange peel.
Okay.
So this was my interpretation of it because I'd never done any piecing. So
Sure.
I'm sure I did it totally different than the way you're supposed to. But this is where that came about. And there was a limit on the size. It needed to be 50 inches by 50 inches minimum. So this is the largest quilt that I've ever made.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but that's how it came about. And I have little orange peels here.
I see that.
Yeah.
We'll get a close up. Oh, those are so it's an orange peel with your decorative stitches,
Right.
Versus with
Yeah.
pieced. What has been the reaction of traditional quilters to your work, which is clearly very
They
non-traditional?
seem to really like it. You know, it's it doesn't. They don't shy away from it.
Okay.
I had one lady though. It was interesting. I was at doing a quilt show up in northern Wisconsin, and I was demoing on the Baby Lock Elissimo, and she came up to me and she said, "Well, you're cheating." And I said, "Well, I don't think so." And I said, "If it's on the machine, why would it be cheating?" I said, "I'm just doing it. These stitches were actually designed as a replacement for the hand embroidery
Sure.
stitches." So, and I was talking to Brian Bailey a couple years ago. He was at a quilt store that I was at, and I showed him my work, and he said, this was his quote, he said, "You're doing what I designed these stitches for. This is what they actually were meant to be done with."
You're pretty much an homage to the technical innovation of the sewing industry because you're using their features and their stitches, and I think that is actually a big gift to the consumer because a lot of times people will buy the machine that has, I mean, you can get a machine with almost thousands of decorative stitches on it, and people say, "Oh, I'm never going to use those," or "Why would I buy this machine?" But clearly, you have made the best use of these machines. You've made the most of the Baby Lock Elissimo, which
Right.
has probably more stitches than a lot of machines out there. So, can you talk about your experience with the Baby Lock machines?
Well, that's all I have now.
Okay.
I love the machines, and I started out with a different brand, and it took me, I think if I would have started out on a Baby Lock, it wouldn't have taken me 12 years to figure this out. It would have taken me less than half the time because they're so user-friendly. And also what's really good about them is if I'm teaching a class and somebody doesn't have one that has all the updated stitches, but they're kind of thinking about it before the class, they always buy one after
Really?
they take my class, yeah. Because they can justify it then. They know
Exactly.
that they're going to have a use for those stitches, and it's not
Absolutely.
just putting a trim on a collar or something.
It's truly an art form.
Right. Well, I go to a lot of quilt shows, and I look around and I don't see anybody, barely at all, using any of the decorative stitches.
Right.
And I see beautiful work, and it's with the straight stitches and a lot of thread painting,
Right.
but they're not using the decorative stitches, and that's all I use.
Right.
So I think that's why my book has done so well, because it's the first one on the market.
And any other advice you have for any budding fiber artists out there?
Well, and I said this when I did my interview with Linda, is just be fearless. You know, don't worry about making mistakes. Also, work small at first. You know, don't,
heard you say
you
that
don't
in
have to
class.
work big. When I was
Yeah.
in fiber school, my teacher was Joan Lindahl, who was a famous fibers artist, and she had us do these projects that were, we had to do, I can't remember the amount of them, but we had to do 6 by 6 inch projects of anything. And so I still go back to that forum because I find that if you're working small like that, you are willing to take risks with color, with technique, with shapes, whatever, because you're not putting that much time into it.
Right.
And you're actually not even making something that's going to be a finished product.
Sure. So you don't feel that pressure.
Right.
But you still are saying, I'm going to get this 6 by 6 square finished.
Right.
That's
And
your
if you
goal.
like it, then you can, you know, make an extension from that or use just part of it, you know, whatever. But that's the format that I use all the time.
Do we have any questions from our audience? So, question from Zede. How do you feel when you see your students' reactions to the kind of odd things you have them do with the machine?
Yeah, I mean, seeing the people that are very, you know, precise and everything has to be straight and even, and by the end of my class, it's all gone out the window. You know, they're just going for it. And it really is fun to see that when they all of a sudden go, oh, I get it. You know, it can, because, you know, doing the foundation where they're distorting the first cross stitch and they're pushing it faster, it's where I kind of figure it makes or breaks
See
it.
it break them, yeah.
and most of the time they just go for it and they're fine. I've had a few people who have been so frustrated from it, though, they've actually gotten up and walked out. But that's only been a very few
Didn't
out of
happen today.
hundreds and hundreds of students. Almost everybody just loves it. Well, Nancy Zeman took my class
Did
too, and
she?
she really liked it.
So where do you find your fabrics? It's a question from Linda B. They look like batiks. Do you find batiks? I know you do some of your own surface design and dyeing. Can
Yeah,
talk
do
to us
you
about
mean
that?
my, like,
The background fabrics?
it's all my painted fabric.
Okay.
My preferred surface to paint on is vintage tablecloths.
Okay.
And you know, I've been buying them for years at yard sales and flea markets, and they have holes in them and they have stains in them, and it's okay because, you know, I cover a lot of that stuff up. But I paint first with acrylic paint, then I dye the fabric, and then I start stitching on
Okay.
it.
Do you just water down your acrylics quite a bit or not?
Right out of the bottle, brand new, is a perfect thickness.
Okay.
You need to have me
Yes,
teach that.
yes, we do.
But I like it about the consistency of a thick buttermilk.
The question from Linda B again is, how do you get inspired to create your flowers?
Sometimes I might go by something, an image that I like, and I'll just kind of let it grow from there. Sometimes I'll pick a color and just kind of just go freeform with it. I very rarely plan out the exact whole piece. I might, know, okay, well, a large flower is going to go here and a large flower is going to go there, but that can change too. So my inspiration, though, is more about, I'll go through and I'll pull out threads or colors or fabrics that I'm attracted to at the moment, and that'll be my colors to start with. It doesn't mean it's going to stay that way either.
And what kind of threads do you like to use to make your pieces look as amazing as they do?
Well, my new favorite is the sulky blendables.
Okay.
I just love those. I need to get some of those 12 weights.
Yeah, those were one
look
of our
wonderful.
students was using those today.
But I like polys and rayons. Anything that is going to be able to be stress-free.
Well, thanks for coming and visiting with us, Karen, and teaching today, and we look forward to having you back again. So thank you
Okay.
so much.
Well, good. I love your new store, and it's fun to see you guys, and thanks for asking me.
Linda, I want to thank you again for coming on the show and being our guest. We learned a lot about how to dress our new babies.
And thank you to Karen Linduska for the awesome interview, and thank you guys for watching. Inside Zede's Sewing Studio is filmed in front of a live studio audience at Parkgate Center in Columbia, Missouri.